Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video, and here we have what I think is a brand new fragrance. I haven't heard about this one until recently, and it's by the brand Haramain. I know I've covered a bunch of their fragrances on this channel before, including L'Aventure, which is their sort of inspiration of Creed Aventus. Today we're going to be focusing our attention on Junoon Oud, which I think is a great alternative to a really popular designer fragrance. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this one, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin today's video and I tell you all about Junoon Oud by Haramain, and I let you know about the fragrances that it's similar to, how similar I think it is, and if it does do things in a different way, what are some of the sort of redeeming factors of this fragrance. I want to start things off by saying that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. Now, Haramain is a brand that certainly has a lot of really long-lasting fragrances. And in my experience, a lot of the fragrances that they've done are sort of twists or inspirations of really popular fragrances. I believe one of them is Neroli Canvas, and that is one that I've reviewed recently. That one is actually a twist of Neroli Portofino by Tom Ford. There's also L'Aventure. That is their version of Creed Aventus. And there's also L'Aventure Night and many other fragrances to speak about. So this one, Junoon Oud, there's grapefruit, there's rosewood, there's amber, there's some dark ingredients in here, but I think it's really all about those bright, sparkling, refreshing, citrusy, and perhaps even oceanic ingredients in the opening and heart. I'm excited to give you my in-detail thoughts on the smell. Let's start things off with the presentation. So I mentioned before that grapefruit is a note in this fragrance. And of course, the grapefruit really pops in the opening. It fizzes and it's so bright and sparkling and effervescent. And this is one of my favorite openings of all time. I've actually smelled this opening in a number of other fragrances, and all of these fragrances have that same sort of bright, zesty appeal that makes it a perfect fragrance for the summertime in terms of the grapefruit. Now, here's the funny thing. I think that there are a lot of ingredients sort of residing in the base of this fragrance that also makes it a good contender for the colder weather, namely the autumn, because there is something still very bright about this one. So I don't know if this is winter appropriate per se, but autumn, no doubt. So this fragrance reminds me a lot of Tygar by Bvlgari. And of course, it also reminds me a lot of Afternoon Swim by Louis Vuitton. So both of those fragrances are very similar to one another. They sort of have this ambroxan. Now, ambroxan isn't listed as a note in this fragrance, but those two other fragrances have this sort of ambroxan, grapefruit, and ginger vibe where it's kind of sparkling, yet a little spicy in the opening, and it has this zesty introduction, but it also has these marine elements to it. And that is actually kind of what I'm getting from this fragrance too. There is this sort of ambroxan, aquatic component to the fragrance, but it's interesting, once you give it a chance to dry down, you do have this smooth patchouli in the base. And the patchouli doesn't really make its presence known, at least not right away. So patchouli has a personality of being very chocolatey and dense and chunky, but sometimes it can also be very herbal and bitter and dirty and earthy. And I'm getting neither one of those personalities in here, which is pretty interesting, but I am getting something green, which leads me to believe that it's probably coming from the patchouli. Now, of course, at first glance, you look at the box and you look at the bottle, which is a gorgeous bottle, by the way, very unique. I've never seen anything like this. And rosewood is listed as a note. And of course, certainly looks like rosewood, right, in terms of the presentation. So my guess is that there is something quite woodsy happening in the base. And that is what separates or differentiates this fragrance from other grapefruit heavy fragrances like Tygar and Afternoon Swim. The fact that it kind of has this smooth, woodsy, and patchouli dry down which actually makes this one a little denser and a little heavier. I personally really enjoy Tygar by Bvlgari, but one of my qualms with it is that on some days I get okay performance, on other days I might get 5 or 6 hours, right? So I know for a freshie that's sort of to be expected, but there are times when I just certainly wish that it would have lasted a little bit longer. So I feel like this fragrance does take things in a different direction. So perhaps it's not as bright or as zesty as something like Tygar, but it is going to give you better longevity. And I think that that for a lot of people is going to be a worthwhile compromise. Now, in my experience, the fragrances that Haramain have put out have been quite long lasting. And even in the case of something like, I know I mentioned Neroli Canvas, that fragrance seems to last a really long time on my skin as well. Despite the fact that it's very citrus heavy in the opening, there's enough of those base heavy ingredients lingering underneath to really anchor the fragrance and allow it to last a bit longer than some of the other Neroli counterparts that are a bit on the ephemeral side of things. All in all, if you're looking for a longer lasting and more inexpensive alternative to Bvlgari Tygar and Afternoon Swim by Louis Vuitton, but one inevitably that does things a little bit differently, so it's not a direct inspiration, but it is a twist of the formula, definitely check out Junoon Oud by Haramain. And from what I saw online, Oud is not listed in the note breakdown, and of course I am not getting an Oud heavy fragrance. I just finished doing a video on Majnoon by Osman, and that is a really heavy oud. So coming from that and then smelling this, yeah, I'm not really getting oud. But in any case, I think oud would kind of counteract or defeat the purpose of this fragrance, which I think is to create this very bright, zesty, vibrant, and vivacious and luminous fragrance that can be enjoyed towards the tail end of the summer, but also the beginning of autumn. I think it's a solid release, and I look forward to you getting a chance to try it soon. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, it's not the most unique fragrance on the market because it is a twist of Bvlgari Tygar, but at the end of the day, it does things differently. So like I said, that would probably be a worthwhile compromise and trade-off for a lot of people. So it's just a matter of seeing if you can get your hands on a sample, trying it for yourself, and you might actually prefer it over something like Tygar or Afternoon Swim. And the overall smell is incredibly pleasant, no rough edges here, definitely a compliment-worthy composition. Longevity on this one is about 8 to 9 hours, and the projection was great for the first 2 hours of application when that bergamot is in full bloom, so to speak. It actually performs very well. It became an elbow's length scent right around hour 6, 6.5, right around hour 8 or 9. It started to sit very close to the skin. In terms of the versatility, I do think this one is perfectly unisex. I think this one will appeal to anybody of any age. I think this one is great for the hotter weather, but you can pull it off in the autumn as well. And I do think that this one can be worn casually or formally. So it happens to be one of the more versatile fragrances out there, that along with Bvlgari Tygar, of course, which is very similar in terms of its compositional nature. In terms of the presentation, I think the presentation is gorgeous, from this drawer style presentation to the accents, the rosewood accents on the bottle here, and the gold face on the front with the atomizer that gives you a really nice distribution. My final verdict on this fragrance is, if you're looking for a really solid, long-lasting alternative to Afternoon Swim or Bvlgari Tygar, please check out Junoon Oud by Haramain. I hope you enjoy it. I always hope that you enjoy the fragrances that you try and purchase. And of course, fragrance is subjective, so some of us will enjoy fragrances, others it might not cater to our personal taste, but I think that's the beauty of it. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider showing your support by subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell so you could be notified whenever I do upload these videos, and give this video a thumbs up. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye.